have your handout from last week. Do you have any questions here as we get started first?
I have not like a question, it's more like a dilemma. I don't know if I need to start the lit review from scratch or using the one that I already have.
Okay. Have you uploaded your literature review to
No.
Google Drive? All right. If you can do that, let's start from there. Move your literature review over, all right, to Google Drive that's shared in Canvas that I can access. And if you can add at the bottom your research questions, and in that way, I'll look at kind of what you have here, which is how teachers, you wish to learn more about how teachers teach pronunciation, because you want to find out what strategies they are using and why they prefer these strategies over others. So you want to look at the what strategies you're using,
and why.
And why. Now, you're not interested in how they're using strategies.
Maybe.
Because what you could do is, instead of asking the question what strategies they use, you could say how they are using strategies
and why.
And why. And then the how strategies, you're going to be talking about the what, because you're going to be talking about what strategies they use. So now, how many different strategies do you think they'll be using, or how many strategies are you talking about in your literature review?
In my literature, I think I found like 5. There are more, but the 5 I talking about there are the ones that call my attention.
Okay, and how would you categorize those strategies? Are they all of one type, or are these strategies different types?
According to what I found, there are silent strategies, teaching pronunciation in a silent way, and then are the speaking strategies to teach pronunciation.
Okay, kind of a direct, indirect type of strategy, so where they explicitly give the strategy, and then another where they don't, type of?
Yes.
Are these teaching strategies or learner strategies? Like learning strategies?
I think they're teaching strategies.
It's like what the teacher does, like a pedagogical strategy? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I would suggest maybe thinking about the how question, and we'll focus on a how and why. And then, in order to understand how pronunciation is taught, so that teachers can be aware of the different ways to teach it. All right. All right. Do you have some examples? Let's see here. I wish to examine strategies. Unit of analysis, individual strategies, individual teacher strategies?
Yes.
All right, so for example, you might be looking at 2 or 3 teachers and looking at how they use those 5 or those.
The strategies they have.
Okay, so my question then would be, what happens if they use a strategy that's not one of the 5 strategies that you discuss in your lit review?
I was thinking of making like a comparison between the ones I found and the ones they use.
Okay. How about, here's another suggestion. Let's say, how likely is it that you can find teachers that are using the 5 strategies that you include in your literature review? I mean, just based on your experience, do you think that you can find? No?
Maybe one of them, but not the 5.
No? Are you sure?
Yes.
Because that might be a problem. Because I was going to suggest doing, let's say, you do a survey, and you apply the survey, 120 teachers. I mean, you just mass produce this survey, very brief, or maybe it's online, but you apply it to, let's say, 120 teachers in Aguascalientes. Do you think you can find a few teachers that are using a lot these 5 strategies?
Probably.
You know, I mean, because it is important that you find teachers that are, because you want to investigate those 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, why did you choose those 5? I mean, how did you choose those 5 to focus on in your lit review?
Because they were different. I mean, there's one where the author makes like teach pronunciation silently, so he only uses mouth movements. And then there was another author that uses movies to teach pronunciation by imitating the dialogues.
Okay.
And there was, those are the ones I remember.
Okay. Right now, another option is to do some sort of intervention. And I bring that up kind of with a cautionary tone because
Yeah.
you need to, there's nothing wrong with doing an intervention. An intervention would be that you are going, an intervention is where you're going to another teacher or a couple of teachers saying, okay, I want you to try to do this. Okay, I have this idea and I want you to implement this strategy. They may or may not know the strategy. They may or may not implement it the way that you either need or would like for the purpose of your research. Okay, so there are those risks out there when you do an intervention, but it is a possibility. And obviously you need to find teachers that are willing to do it. Some teachers are just going to say, no, I don't want to do it, right? Or maybe the school policy is such that it doesn't align with the school policy, and they tell me I can't do it. I'll get in trouble with the administrators or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, but it is a possibility that you find 1 or 2 or 3 teachers that you could perhaps do an intervention. That is a possibility. But ideally, I think it would be nice to find some teachers who are already doing, these strategies already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to really be thinking about that, because that's a big, big issue. I think we're going to have problems if you try to keep those 5 strategies in your literature review, and you end up researching other strategies, because then there's going to be a disconnect between your theory and your research. Okay, so and I think it would be easier to try to not change so much in your literature review and try to find teachers that are doing these strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so be thinking about that. These are things that you'll need to decide quickly on, as far as whether or not you really think you can find teachers that are doing these strategies. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. I wish to examine strategies, individual. So you can, there's a lot of different options as far as the unit of analysis. You could choose 2 or 3 teachers and they use these 5 strategies amongst them, and you can compare or just describe how they use it. You don't have to do a comparison. Okay, it can just be
a description.
It could be this teacher does 3 strategies, a second teacher does a 4th, and another teacher does a 5th, and you talk about. Now, you could find if you find similarities at the end, you mention them. If there's something that's different about them that's worth discussing, that's fine. But it's not like, it's not really necessary if you're descriptive and understanding how they are using those, because you are going to be comparing them to the experts.
Mm-hmm.
So even if there's not a lot of comparison amongst the 3 of them in this example, you do need to compare what they do with the research.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one thing. You might, I don't think, maybe it's unlikely that you have one teacher that does all 5 strategies, but it's possible. If you find one teacher that does all 5, you could focus and do a case study on that one group, and then look at how the students react to those 5 strategies. That's another option. So those are things that you need to be thinking about. But right now, I think it's very important that you figure out whether or not you do you think you can find the teachers, because that's kind of a big deal. And if need be, think of a questionnaire and just mass produce it and apply it to as many teachers as possible. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What else? Okay. Now the thing we need. So go ahead and upload your literature review to the Google Drive document.
Yes.
Add your research questions. You need to decide, in these couple of days here, what you want to do, kind of with your literature review. But go ahead and add that information, and the next step would be to start organizing your literature review. And I've been talking to everybody about this link that I have under modules for week 2. That's called Developing an Argument. All right, please look at this. It's very important. This is there's a lot of information here. There's a video that's almost an hour long, but it really talks deeply about how to create an academic argument, and that is what we need to be doing in our literature review. So it's basically figuring out how we're going to organize our ideas in our literature review, and maybe it's already organized and we don't have to make hardly any changes, but this is what we need to be looking at to make sure that you are organizing your ideas around your thesis statement and your research questions, and that you're forming an argument in your theory. And I think this will help you if you look through this. There's some text, not a lot of text here, but some ideas about what to consider whenever you're organizing your literature review. Okay, so once you have copy and pasted your literature review over, you're clear on this handout as far as the research problem that you want to investigate, what you want to examine, your unit of analysis, and your research design. Then the next step is to organize. But we need this first.
Yes.
And specifically in your case, you need to tell me that you are comfortable with keeping those 5 strategies the way they are, or if you feel that you need to make some changes to your literature review. Okay? So if you tell me that you're okay with that, then we look at the organization. Okay? But I do think it's kind of important that you try to reflect on whether or not you think you can find those teachers, or at least give you, maybe I need to look at your literature review and see exactly what strategies that we're talking about. But I want you to start looking at that. You need to make this decision within a couple of days. Okay, so
Yes.
you let me know before next week. Don't wait all week and be kind of lost about this aspect. If we need to talk about it again, come by my office or send me an email and we'll straighten it out. But this has to be clear for you, whether or not you want to focus on these 5 strategies or not. And try to get as many primary research articles that you can find that you can use as a guide for your own research.
Yes.
Okay? Como es? Do you have any?
So I can make a questionnaire before, in order to see what the strategies teachers use, and then
Sure.
I can develop my research from.
Yeah, because any qualitative research, okay, what we can do, we can talk a lot about what you're going to do for your data collection, but there's always, and this is normal for qualitative research, there's going to be times where you may have to adapt certain aspects of your qualitative data collection practices to account for what information you get. And this is a prime example. Like I can't tell you exactly how many participants are ideal for your study at this point, because of this, we don't know how many teachers are implementing these strategies. So one option is we do a questionnaire, and let's say from the questionnaire you find 3 teachers that kind of use some of these strategies, and 1 teacher that uses all 5 strategies. You might decide, okay, I'm just going to focus on this 1 teacher and do a case study and focus on more on the dynamic between the students and the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Or based on the research, let's say on the survey, you find 3 teachers, like I mentioned, 3 teachers that use, let's say 1 teacher that uses 3 strategies and another teacher uses the 1 and another teacher uses the 5th strategy. Based on those, then you choose those 3 teachers. Right, so you're not going to be able to really decide on exactly which participants until you get the, in this case, the findings, the results from the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you get your participants, let's say you choose 3 teachers, you're only going to focus on the results of the questionnaire for those 3 teachers. We're not going to use all the data. And you might think, well, there's a lot of data there that's maybe interesting, but it's not really the focus of your study. Okay, so the tendency is to try to use all of that information when really only maybe 3 or 4 teachers actually are giving you data that you can use for your results. So, but it's part of the process, and I think in this case, since we don't know a lot of teachers that use these, you may need to do a mass survey and really try to find those select few teachers. And it's kind of risky because, I mean, if you can't find them, then you're gonna have problems because, yeah. So I need to look at your theory. I'd rather make a more informed decision after we both look at your literature review again. You think about it.
Yes.
And we talk again about it after I look at the details of your literature review, and you ask yourself maybe, if you have other information that you want to add or take out that might, help. For example, you might add 1 page or 2 pages of theory of different strategies that are more common that you might include in there, and then for sure that you won't have a problem. I don't know.
Yes.
But I need to look at to see what strategies
Mm-hmm.
are being used there, and so did I answer your question? Is that, I mean, as far
Yes.
as, yeah, so you can use a survey, and I think in your case that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the other option is to do an intervention. If you do an intervention, you don't need to do a survey.
I use
You
that
just
procedure
choose, you say, 3 teachers that are willing and able to implement these strategies, and you kind of, then you do your research there. And so, yeah, that's another option. So you decide, let me know, and as soon as you decide, then we'll be talking about kind of the specifics about if you're going to do an intervention, what instruments and we need to do for those. So, all right.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No, that's it for now.
All right. So then I'll see you next week if you don't have any other questions. But do feel free to contact me if you're not sure about what you're doing, and go ahead and start uploading your literature review to Google Drive.
Yes.
All righty.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you.